You know, if you're a person of a certain age who grew up in Northern Brunswick 1970s, you remember this movie because it either showed up at your local drive-in. For me, it was in Pinnarush, which is near Bathurst, or on TV show TV on Saturday or Sunday afternoons. Now, John Walco was from the States, is part of Pennsylvania. I don't know if you've ever seen it in French with Spanish subtitles, but I have. Uh, He made a request of this in recent days, and I kind of held back because I didn't want to let on that I knew more about the movie than he did, because he knows a lot about horror movies. But today we're going to be talking about the big piece of cheese that's been re-released so many times through the years. I can't keep up. King Kong Escapes. Now, this Japanese movie. It was directed by the great Ishiro Honda with special effects by Elijah Tujabaya. The film was a Japanese-American co-production between Toho and Rankin Bass and co-stars Rose Reason, Linda Miller, Akira Takarada, Mia Hama, Eisai Yamamoto with Haru Nakayama as King Kong and Orosha Sekita as Mechanai Kong and Gorosaurus. Have to be seen to be believed. Now, the film is loosely based on the Rankin Bass series, The King Kong Show, which is a classic in itself, if you can find some of the old episodes, and was the second and final Toho-produced film featuring King Kong. King Kong Escapes was released in Japan in July 1967 and was released in the United States on June 1968. Technically, it's the fourth entry in the King Kong franchise, but has been re-released over the years in many shapes or forms on VHS, Betamax, DVD, all different formats. Now, in this one, an evil genius named Doctor Who, wow, creates some Mechana Kong, a robot version of King Kong, to dig for the highly radioactive element X, found only at the North Pole. You know it's going to be a good show with this plot. Mechanai Khan enters an ice cave and begins to dig into a glacier, but the radiation destroys his brain circuits and the robot shuts down. Who, or Doctor Who, then sets his sights on getting the real Kong to finish the job. Who can finish the job? Who can? Who is taken to task by a female overseer, Madame Piranha, no joke here, whose country's government is financing the doctor's schemes and frequently berates him for his failure to get results. Now, these scenes have to be seen to be believed. It's like you're nagging a person who could bring out King Kong mechanized. It's not going to end well, of course. Now, this one, a submarine commanded by Carl Nelson arrives at Mondo Island, where the legendary King Kong lives. How he got there, I don't know. Here, the giant apes get into an intense fight with a giant dinosaur, Gorosaurus, and a sea serpent. He falls in love with Lieutenant Susan Watson, played by Linda Jo Miller, following in the footsteps of Ann Darrow from the 33 original film. Now, Doctor Who, or Who, subsequently goes to Mondo Island, abducts the real Kong, and brings him back to his base at the North Pole. Kong is eventually hypnotized by a flashing light device and fitted with a radio earpiece. Who, or Doctor Who, commands Kong to retrieve Element X from the cave. Who get Element X? Who says? Who does? Problems with the earpiece ensue, and Who has to kidnap Susan Watson, the only person who can control Kong. Who does he capture? Susan, that's who. After Watson and her fellow officers are captured by Who, Madame Piranha unsuccessfully tries to seduce Nelson to bring him over to her side. Bed talk, so what do you call Piranha? Ooh, you're going to eat me alive. Eventually, Kong escapes and swims all the way to Japan, where the climactic battle with Mechana Kong transpires. The two giants face off at the Tokyo Tower in the finale. Kong prevails and destroys the Mechana Kong and kills Who. Who does he kill? Who and his men. Then Kong triumphantly swims back to his island home. The box office of this was quite good, actually. It sold 1 million tickets in France with $1 million box office worldwide. 96 minutes in the States and 104 minutes in Japan. Like I said, cut for commercials quite often. Now, Rhodes Reason played Commander Nelson, and obviously you're going to have the American to Japanese and Japanese to American. So it's very, very interesting. Again, it's partly a remake of the animated TV series. It's itself a retelling of the original 33 film about a tame Kong who was befriended by a boy and directed to fight for the forces of good. That concept, minus the boys, combined with a mad scientist story with elements from the then popular spy film genre. The sinister Doctor Who is patterned after James Bond villains Dr. Julius No and Ernest Stavro Blofeld. His partner, Madame Piranha, is an Asian spy played by Mia Hama. Fresh from the Bond film You Only Live Twice. Submarine Commander Carl Nelson is similar to Admiral Nelson, commander of the submarine Seaview and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, a series that also features giant monsters and stories about international espionage. Now, veteran actor Paul Frees, a very good voice actor, dubbed Doctor Who in the American version. Now, in an interview with Reason on the making of the film, Paul Frees did almost all the male voices for the dubbed version, save for Carl Nelson, where Reason returned to dub the character's voice. Freeze apparently asked Reason, give me a reason why I was there, and said as a joke, why are you here? I could probably do a better version of you than you could. Now, Linda Miller hated her dub voice in the American version, but loved the Japanese voice. She was extremely mad at Mr. Rankin, the producer, for not inviting her to dub her own lines when Rhodes and Reese and Nelson was able to redub his. It turned out to work this way because Reason was part of the Screen Actors Guild, and Miller was only a model and still residing in Japan at the time, and transportation costs to New York would have been prohibitive, several $1,000s. Now, the shot of Gorosaurus living on Monster Island was seen in the 1969 film All Monsters Attack, was actually stock footage taken from this film. Now, special effects included, like I said, Elijah Dushabura, and a very, very good special effects as was. Now, Toho re-released the film in 1973 when I saw it at the drive-in as part of the Champion Mutsuri, a film festival that ran from 1969 through 1978 and features numerous films packaged together and aimed at children. In 1983, the film was screened during the Godzilla Resurrection Festival. Now, outside Japan and the US, the film received a wide release in most international markets, where it went by different titles. It was released in West Germany as King Kong, Frankenstein's Son. Don't know why. In Belgium as La Revanche de King Kong, The Revenge of King Kong, a direct translation of the Japanese title. In Italy as King Kong Il Gigante della Foresta, King Kong the Giant of the Forest. In Turkey as Canavarien Gazabi, Wrath of the Monsters. In Mexico as El Regroso de King Kong, The Return of King Kong. In Finland as King Kong Kuyu Sarela, King Kong and the Island of Terror. And in Sweden as King Kong Paskrakens King Kong on Terror Island. So you got Godzilla and King Kong and False King Kong together. Tremendous. The film was released twice on DVD. The first time is a double feature 2-pack in separate keep cases with King Kong vs. Godzilla on November 29, 2005, and again on April 1st, 2014. But I know it's been on VHS because I've seen copies. Now, the film opened the States in June 1968 as a double feature with the Don Knotts comedy western, which I've already seen, To Shake His Gun in the West, itself the remake of the 1948 Bob Hope comedy western, The Paleface. The film earned American and Canadian theatrical rentals of $1 million, equivalent to estimated box office gross receipts of $3 million. In France, it sold over 1 million tickets, so do the numbers on that. I would figure $3 million range. Now, contemporary American reviews of the movie were mixed. Vincent Canby of the New York Times gave it a particularly insulting review, commenting, "The Japanese are all thumbs when it comes to making monster movies like King Kong Escapes. The Toho movie makers are quite good at building miniature sets, but much of the process photography, matching the miniatures with the full-scale shots, is just bad. The plotting is hopelessly primitive." Now, in the July 15, 1968 issue of Film Bulletin, it gave it a more positive review, saying grown-ups who like their entertainments on a comic strip level will find it good fun, and the universal release, which is made in Japan, has plenty of ballyhoo angles to draw to school-free youngsters in large numbers. Now, Toho wanted to use King Kong again after this film. King Kong was included in the early draft of the 1968 film Destroy All Monsters, very underrated movie, but was ultimately dropped due to the fact that Toho license on the character was set to expire. Toho managed to get some use out of the suit, though. It was reused to play the character Gorilla in episode 38 of the Toho giant superhero show Go Green Man. The 3-part episode, titled Green Man vs. Gorilla, aired from March 21st, 1974 through March 23rd, 1974. Now, Toho would bring the character Gorosaurus into the Godzilla series and Destroy All Monsters using the same suit from this film. The suit was reused again 4 years later, at this point in a dilapidated condition, to portray the character in episode 6 of the Toho giant superhero show Go Godman. The 6-part episode, titled Godman vs. Gorosaurus, aired from November 9, 1972 through November 15th of that year. Now, in the early 1990s, when plans for a King Kong vs. Godzilla remake fell through, Toho had planned to bring back Mechanicon as an opponent for Godzilla in the project Godzilla vs. Mechanicon. However, according to Koichi Kawakita, it was discovered that obtaining permission to use even a likeness of King Kong would be difficult. He noted, Toho wanted to pit Godzilla against King Kong because King Kong vs. Godzilla was tremendously successful. However, the studio thought that obtaining permission to use King Kong would be difficult, so instead decided to use Mechanicon. Soon afterward, it was discovered that obtaining permission to even use a likeness of King Kong would be difficult, so the project was cancelled. Mechanicon was going to have injectors. A number of people were going to be injected in Godzilla while a robot was wrestling with him. They then were going to do battle with Godzilla from within, while Mechanicon continued to do battle with him from without. There were going to be so many different strange worlds inside Godzilla. The concept was very much like the one on which Fantastic Voyage was based. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more about this this movie, there's a whole in Variety. There was a big article called "Big Rental Films of 1968," and also talking about the various King Kong versus Doctor Who. A very interesting article by Alison Pregler in 2018. Again, who's the person that's trying to kill Godzilla? Trying to kill King Kong. Who is the person? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our latest our John Walco request. We thank you, John. If you like what we're doing here, we're a vintage horror podcast or a thriller podcast. Let us know with a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. Bye.